First off, thanks for joining us. We've got about 20 minutes on this one. If you missed the beginning of it, we're going to go over that document that I just dumped in there. It's about branding. And when it comes to branding, I really want to focus on identifying or re-identifying what it is that you stand for when it comes to your business, because that's how you're showing up, whether it's on social, on paper, in person, on emails, anything that you're sending out. And so, great friend, Corey says, great friend, Jacob. I want you to start thinking along the lines. If you're looking at the document, there's a section where I have Seth Godin in there going over the 3 V's. He says visuals, voice, and value proposition. I want to start with value proposition. That's where I want to start with, because a lot of us are doing things, but we don't realize that we're actually doing them. And that's the perception that the consumer is taking on. Like, what are you doing online? What type of emails are you sending out? What type of communication is being had while you're nurturing these leads? How's the conversation, right? And more importantly, how are you showing up on social media? What does that look like? So when we're looking at value proposition, I want you to start taking more of a hands-on approach. And that value proposition means this is what I stand for, and this is how I communicate, and this is the value that I give. So that when people meet you in person, most of the time, if you've done a great job on the value prop online and on paper, if you're still mailing out stuff, it's a lot easier for people to work with you, because most of the calls we get when it's a referral or a call up, it's them checking to make sure that you are who you say you are on paper or online. And unless you screw that up over the phone or in person, it's all good, right? So I'm going to go to Brian first. Brian, when it comes to value proposition, what comes to mind for real estate specifically?
For me, for value proposition is, what specific value am I bringing? So I'll give you an example for us. Like, we've got a 5-point system in what we call our VIP buyer, VIP seller program. So I actually would even say that's a unique value proposition. I know you're talking about specifics, but it's, first of all, we want to set expectations for what the client wants. And I think a lot of times we don't bother to do that. A lot of times we just go in and start talking about what we want. So for me, our number one value proposition is serving the client's needs in a way that is a win-win. That is our number one value proposition for us. So everything else falls underneath that. So, but here's the thing I think most people don't do. They don't find out what's a win for that client. They know what's a win for us. I know what's a win for me. I'm happy client and closing. That's basically a win for me, right? I walk away happy client, which means I'm going to get more referrals, closing, which means I'm going to get paid. But what's a win for them? What's that process look like? So to me, step one of a value proposition is I want to create a win-win situation. Good for me, good for you. And here's the question that I ask every client that I were to work with, if I was to be back out selling houses today, is what are you looking for in a real estate agent? And I don't care if that's on the buy side or the sell side, but if you can get that, and then we can go and we can create what's a win-win situation from there. So I know that was a little bit vague, but that's where we start.
I kind of like that. I'm going to go to either Mark or Jacob, whichever wants to take this one. But that, I think, goes into visuals, Brian, because what we think we're leading with sometimes gets a little convoluted. So our visuals are really important. Like, what does that look like that we're actually offering? Right. And through the visuals, it creates clarity. So either Jacob or Mark, with your visuals on social or print or emails that you're sending out, what if somebody were to look in at what you're doing, what would they be able to connect with as far as that value that you bring? What does that look like visually?
I can jump in and just give you my like value-based service. It's just 5 quick points. One being when clients look at this stuff and when they work with me and when so on and so forth, when they get to know me, they notice 5 things. And one is my desire for the client's outcome, right? Mm-hmm. They know, like, they've expressed to me their outcome and they can see my desire to execute that for them. Mm-hmm. Another thing is that they'll get from me is listening rather than speaking. Obviously I speak, but listening before and executing their needs, making them feel like very comfortable and very heard. Also attention to detail and care for even like the small steps, like A to Z is buttoned up like to a T, right? And they also notice, having a checklist from start to finish in the process of selling their home or purchasing a home, because, for us, it's very common to get lost in, this is what we do every day. So, step A to Z is, well, it's like driving a car. But for someone who just got in the car for the first time or just bought a car and has just got their license, it can be a bit nerve wracking. So having an instructor or having someone there, i.e., an agent, that's good to guide them throughout the whole process, throughout the whole buying and selling process. And then fifth is knowing my strengths, leaning into them, and hiring an assistant or a TC or whoever, an organizer for everything else that I'm not that great at. So that way the service is buttoned up to a T.
Got it.
That's 5.
Okay, I like that. Jacob, when I'm looking at visuals or I'm looking at a value prop that's either written or on a postcard, because you've designed some really nice ones. What are we looking at so that value is actually shown, so that somebody looking at it would be like, oh yeah, that's nice, and at least want to call you? What does that look like?
Yeah. I think a big thing with marketing, especially coming from like my previous career of like media and entertainment, is one, grabbing people's attention, making sure that it's something visually appealing, not only to yourself, but to the consumer, the general consumer. There's a lot of times you'll see agents that get these beautiful visuals done, but they're so like done up that it's hard to read. It gets muddy. So I feel like you lose a lot of your value at that point when people look at it and go, there's too much going on here. I'm overwhelmed and I'm over it. So then I feel, once you get a clear, simple, clean approach to things, you can put your value into it as far as like who you are. And I believe being authentic to who you are is the main goal with this entire business, whether it's agent to agent or client to agent. They're not going to understand who you are unless you put that out there. And that has to be uniform through your entire branding process. So like, I know a lot of people make fun of me. I have a signature logo that is on literally everything I do. It's on my emails. It's on my t-shirt. It's on my business card. It's on my car window. It's everywhere. So now people know, like, if you see that signature, they know that it's me, but they also know who I am as a person in the community. So then they're associating my brand with my community feel. So I think it's really just bringing yourself, it's, you can get really clean and you can get really artsy with things. But I think the simple, authentic approach is going to win you more clients than the drastic, flashy, expensive, crazy route that a lot of people go.
Okay. I put up your Instagram there. I agree with you on that. But here, one thing that I want to focus on, because it gets a little bit too general when it comes to branding. And I want to bring it down and say, well, who's your actual audience when we're putting out whatever we're putting out on Instagram, Facebook, or mailers or newsletters? Who is your audience, right? And I don't know that a lot of us listening in have really thought about that a lot. Like, are we targeting first-time home buyers? Are we targeting move-up buyers, sellers? Are we targeting luxury? Are we talking to people that vacation in this area, right? And that has a lot to do with how we approach the branding. Some people would think, oh, that's too niche. And I think, no, that's where you start, because you get so great at something that everyone starts referring you and wanting to work with you, and then it expands from there. So, Brian, you've been in business for a long time. As far as branding, where would you start when it comes to a niche? Like, what would you recommend for most people to look at and say, where do I start if I want to do this in real estate? Because I'm not going to say go for everyone.
No, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, the number one rule in marketing is specific is significantly more powerful than general. So, you know, it's funny. BNI, I don't know if anyone's familiar with BNI, Business Network International. I'm not here to promote them, but one of the things that you learn if you go into BNI is that you get this 30-second or 60-second commercial at the beginning of every meeting. And one of the things they tell you is be very specific. So I might say something like this. I'm looking for someone who's looking to buy a house that's at least a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, under 450 in location X. And that is very specific. And they're like, well, I don't know anybody that, but it activates your brain to start working on that stuff. So, you know, for example, we had a roofer in our group, and the one time that roofer said, oh, I'm looking for anybody with a roof. Well, guess what? When you say anybody, that universal, you get nobody, the other universal. So become specific. So find something you want to be good at. So for example, I'll give you where I started. I started working with first-time homebuyers. I'm not saying that's where people should start, but that's just happened to be where I started. I was looking for people, you know, back in the day who had maybe less than perfect credit, so I could help them with that. And then first-time homebuyers, so I could hold their hand through the process. So for me, that was very powerful in that it gave me a group of people that I knew that I was impacting. So, I mean, I've heard you say luxury. You can go specifically to a farm. But here's the thing, I don't think it really matters which niche, if you will, you pick, as long as you pick one, and you might pick two. I'm not saying that you only have to have one. But if your goal is to close everybody, you're going to close nobody.
Yeah, that's true. Like when I'm talking visuals here, when I started, I went door knocking and I printed out these flyers, and it was a very specific farm. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to that farm. It had the market stats, it had the home sales in that area. Right. And then as you start growing that, people are like, oh, I got it. You're talking to me because it's my area, my price point. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's what I'm talking about. What do those visuals look like? And I think it has to reflect on what you're putting out there. And I think that's a big mistake. This is why, like, I'm starting with this in 2023, because we think we can cover everything. So when I started calling expireds, I thought, well, shit, I can call all the counties, LA County, Ventura County. I'll go all the way up to Santa Barbara. And that was the biggest mistake I could make when calling expireds, not only because I was talking to so many different people and I couldn't go to each one when they were interested, but also because it ranged price point and I was having different types of conversations. And when I started niching down on specific areas, like very, very small, I started having better conversations, because then I was going and farming. I bought online leads there, and I started to get the neighborhood down. That's what I'm talking about.
I also want to say something too. I think one thing that's important for you to bring up, Tristan, is this was during your time in, was it Northridge or like the Valley area, right? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, that was one of them, dude. Yeah.
Okay. And how many homes did you sell that year? If I remember correctly, wasn't it 50?
It was like 55. I think it was my
55 in a year.
First year. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty solid. So for those listening, I heard that story the first time and it was very inspiring. It's awesome.
Yeah. But look, that's actually, thank you, man. And that actually, I did it by accident, and I don't want you to do it by accident if you're listening. I want you to do it on purpose. So, you know, first, if you've been in the business for a while, like Brian and I, make sure you update your pictures. Number one, visuals, right? You need to represent correctly. Number one, logo, right? Does it match who you're trying to target? Same thing with video and graphics. Same thing with website. Does it target those areas? And digital and ad prints, if you have those. And then whatever you're trying to do, whoever you're trying to connect with, and I think Jacob does this very well, is fonts, colors, themes, and styles. He's targeting a specific area around Westlake Lake, right? Or let's say North Ranch in Westlake Village, or a part in Westlake Village. And those homes are pricier. So of course it's going to look more luxurious, right? So this is why we go, look, invest in your visuals. It's really important. And if you do this right, the visuals tell part of the story, right? That's why it's important. And we know that subliminally. This is why we go, typically we're like, should I? And I've had this conversation. We look and we're like, should I switch brokerages? Because the brokerage I'm at just doesn't have the right feeling for who I want to target. I've heard that a lot, right? So this is why that comes up. You know this internally. So think about that as well. Like, what do your visuals look like? Right. So Elizabeth says, I love how Jacob is part of the group and is able to differentiate. Yeah. Very true. He uses Canva a lot, he says. So Very good point, Jacob. I like that. I
Tristan,
like
what
that.
about if someone here is not quite gifted at those talents? What would you recommend? Possibly resourcing it out, or
Yeah.
and if so, where would you go?
You could go to Fiverr and read and design it there. The more you pay, right, the higher quality you get. I would say in our case, I know our office, one of our offices has somebody you can go to that does the marketing for you, right? So that's always great if you're not great at it. But there are a lot of options. Jacob, what would you recommend on that?
I was going to say, when I started, this was 4 years ago, 5 years ago. If you're looking to budget it and do it a little cheaper, the hack that I found was go to your local college, find a kid that is majoring in media and graphic design and stuff like that, and offer to pay them as an intern. They want experience, they need work experience, and they want it. And usually what you'll find is their work will be better and quicker than somebody you hire that's a professional, because they really want to impress you, so that you will pay them more and do that kind of thing. So I used to do that all the time. I had like 5 kids that interned for me, doing all my websites, my logos, they would edit my reels for Instagram and, vlog type stuff. And I'd pay them like $20 a video. It was easy.
Ooh, I like that.
So that's just an option as well.
So,
But
yep. No, I'm saying before you go there, I think it's important to outline what your mission and vision is, so that you can kind of hand it over to them and be like, hey guys, this is what I stand for. This is who my target audience is. Can you create something along these lines? And I don't know that any of us do that, right? So
Yeah, I should. Begin with the end in mind, right?
Yeah. So I've got a sheet for you, but you know what? I'll give you the sheet first, and then we'll go over how to fill it in. Here, give me a second. Copy. I'm going to dump it into the chat.
I was going to say, while you're copying that, I was going to say, I know Tristan, Mark, and myself meet quite a bit, and we funnel down our ideas for our marketing and stuff like that. We start with like, hey, I want to get people that are generally at this price point. And then we say, okay, well, how are we going to do that? Well, we need to do this. Well, what's that look like? We need to do this. So we'll step it down, like you guys were saying, really get to the root of what that marketing looks like. And then we realized that those marketing pieces hit a lot of the times better than the ones that were just like, hey, I saw a really cool mailer and I just want to emulate it and send it out to 6,000 houses.
That's a good point, man. And that's where really coming down to the mission and vision are important, because your brand isn't just a logo and the right colors, right? That's what we thought it was for so long. At least I did coming into it. I'm like, I got a brand. But no, it's actually what you stand for. And separating mission and vision here, so you can hear it. If you open up that doc that I put in there, on the mission side, you're looking at, who are you? Like, who are you right now? Who do you serve, or who are you thinking like you serve? Who is that clientele? Who's your audience? And what problems are you solving? Like I know we just went through this with a client, with a coaching client, and she just started talking, and I'm like, oh, I know who you serve based on what you're telling me. It sounds like it's investors and seniors. And so think about it. You're solving problems for who? Who's your clientele? And what transformations do you deliver? That all helps with the mission. And then the vision is future. I always say there's a difference, right? Vision is, who do you aspire to be? Like, who do you want to be 20 years from now, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 3 years from now? And who do you want to serve? Because who I serve now isn't who I served when I started, right? And if it is for you, great. But that wasn't my vision as I started growing. It's changed. And what problems will you have solved, right? That's important too. Taryn says, what's up, Taryn? Definitely important in directing creatives. Yeah, very, very important. Nice to see you here. Never forget your audience. What relationships do you want with that person? And that goes, if you solve for that on that doc, you'll also find that you can use that for social media. It's like you start identifying who your audience is on social as well. It's like, oh, I know who I'm talking to. and you let the algorithm do its thing, especially on something like TikTok or YouTube. It's very important to do that. Brian, what do you think when you think of mission and vision as far as your business?
So our mission is to help. We have a number out there. I'm not going to throw that number out there, but yeah, you know what? This year, our mission is to help at least 700 people transact. That's our mission. But on top of that is to have the best experience buying and selling a house, and so that it again win-win. So it creates a win-win situation, and that is really our mission for 2023. Sorry, I'm gonna make sure I don't screw up the year 2023. That's really where we're at. We're trying to help as many people. And, it's funny because, and I'm not here to talk bad about any other realtor. That being said, there's a lot of realtors out there who are not doing their job. And there's a lot of realtors who've been licensed for less than 36 months and don't know what this is going to take in this market. So, our real mission is to help those people have the absolute best real estate transaction they can. Because, when we look at it, buying and selling a home is the thing for 99% of our clients is going to be the most expensive, the most, risk that they're going to take in 2023. If you think about that, I think oftentimes we forget about it. We do this every single day, but understanding that this is the most valuable asset someone's going to buy or sell this year. And if you keep that in mind, it changes it. It really just changes approach for us. So that's our goal. And, for me personally, when I used to go on, my mission was to be the absolute best realtor in my market. And what I mean by that, it doesn't mean there wasn't realtors who were just as good as me. It just means that no one was better. So, and because again, if Tristan and I were in the same market, what I would say I'm a better realtor than Tristan. No, but I'm willing to say I'm just as good. We might have different approaches, but just as good. So that's really where our mission is, and where we want to go for 2023.
I like that, man. You guys, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like one big thing is to create, long-lasting relationships, business relationships, and creating a service that brings the client back to you in the next go around, or repeats referral business. Which is what you're going to get if you do exactly what Brian just said. So,
yeah, I think the more clear you can get on this part, the clearer you're going to be with who you serve. And that's important, because a lot of us are just going out there and just throwing stuff up and hope it sticks, right? This is why it's so important to understand, like, who actually is your audience, right? Because that's who you're going to connect with. And it's okay to start, for me, like I started at whoever I got at open houses at townhomes and condos. So who do you think my audience was going to be? Right? First time home buyers. Yeah. First time home buyers at condos and those who were selling condos. That's who it was. So know that going in. And I think that's important. So, all right. Any questions you have? Any comments you guys want to add? Mark, thanks for the IG post, James Patton. Yeah. James is good on Instagram. Follow James if you haven't. He's a funny guy. Brian, anything you want to add, man? No, good.
Just welcome to 2023. And I actually want to say this. So it's not 2022. That excites me. And if you're 2023, for us, basically, January ended a couple days ago. It's okay if you're behind. If you're ahead, there's a lot of months left. And I just want people to understand you can stay focused. There's going to be a lot of changes this year. And I think it's going to be a great year in real estate, significantly better than 2022. And I'm just excited about it. Back to building relationship is what 2023 is about. And that's the people who are going to be successful.
Who are you looking to build relationships with?
So multiple people. Multiple people. So first of all, whatever your avatar is for your client, again, I go back to me at the beginning, it was first-time home buyers. So that's who I wanted to build those relationships with. But I think sometimes we forget this. I want to build relationships with four groups of people, specifically agents in my market, agents across the country, referrals, and just that, clients. And then I want to build with local vendors, because those people are a huge part of that transaction. And if you have relationships with all of those people and they're intertwining with each other, that is how you're going to move your business forward. And I think we forget those two categories oftentimes. The agents in your local market, have a good relationship with them. It matters whether you think it does or not. Yeah, and the vendors, because when I say, hey, go talk to this mortgage guy, go talk to this title guy, go talk to this plumber, it doesn't matter if they do a good job or not. It's going to reflect on me. And it does matter. I mean, that's not what I'm saying, but I am responsible for everybody I refer. So I want to build good relationships with those people so that they give my clients a good
All right.
experience.
So out of the 4, by the way,
Mhm.
great 4. Everyone should write those down. Out of the 4, when it comes to the client's part, who is your client? Like, are you going online lead, past client, specific sphere, or what does your client look like?
As I'm going to talk about my team, I don't actively sell anymore,
Yeah.
but my team, we're looking for about 25% sphere and past clients, because that's
Mhm.
ultimately where we break down. And then the majority of the rest of it for us is actually online leads. There's
Okay,
going to
cool.
be multiple
Similar to
little
us.
ones in here, but one-offs here and there, but the majority of our clients are our past clients, about 25%. That other 75% is that those people we're nurturing, right? And online leads, just because someone filled out a form today doesn't mean they're ready to buy tomorrow. So it's nurture, nurture, nurture.
Yeah, interesting, man. Yeah, and same. You and I have a very similar structure, because I think for us, the team here, we're covering referrals from past clients and Sphere, and we're also covering online leads, right? And social media. We do get leads from social as well. So yeah, so make sure as you're listening in, what does that look like for you? Like when Brian's listing out referrals from local agents, well, who specifically? Because I don't want referrals from all local agents, let me tell you, right?
Well, and let me say this, I'm actually not looking for referrals from local agents. I'm looking to have that relationship. So if Tristan and I were doing a transaction together, Tristan would go, this is what Tristan would tell the seller. Oh yeah, I'm assuming I'm a buyer. Brian's a good guy. If he says something, it's true. He's a good person to work with. He'll stay on top of this transaction. I want the other agent talking good about me to his client, so he feels confident. Because if something goes wrong in a real estate transaction, that never happens, right? So when something goes wrong in a real estate transaction, I want them to go to their seller or their buyer and say, hey, don't worry about this. I know this agent. He's going to solve this problem. If it's solvable, let's not freak out. Let's give him an opportunity. Versus we've all worked with that agent who's less good. And I know that's a very great English there, but ultimately I may not be going to my seller or buyer going, yeah, don't worry about it. I might be going, hey, we might need to go look for a different property. We might need to go look for a different buyer. The relationships that you have with those other think about the negotiations that we do. If it's an adversarial relationship on the front end, how much more challenging is it to negotiate repairs? How much more challenging is it to negotiate a closing date modification? These are things that we forget about. Yes, the number one person is our client, but guess what? I have to have relationships with these other people because they're all part of the transaction, and it makes everything go better, not for me, but for my client.
That's a good point, man. I like that. I liked it a lot. All right, we went over, but it was good. So thanks for answering that. Jacob, thanks for jumping in, man. And hopefully that gets resolved. So let me know how that goes.
It'll be taken care of in the next hour.
God bless you, man. That's never a fun conversation.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not letting it slide. There were some fun texts back and forth. It'll go. It'll be good. We'll close it Friday.
Thanks. Damn, so close to closing and they pop in the 25% referral. That's nuts, bro.
Gotta love it. People are bold these days.
That's right. That's right. Thanks, Jacob. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate you guys.